Are you looking for a powerful way to get your message in front of a highly engaged audience? Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Stockdale with the Spin Market Report. Advertising on the Spin Market Podcast Network puts your business directly into the ears of our active listeners. Our podcasts have over 20,000 total streams in the last 12 months. That includes over 160,000 YouTube impressions and over 150,000 total views on YouTube combined. Whether you're promoting a product, service, or event, reach out to the Spin Market Podcast Network to find out how you can reach an actively engaged audience. So get heard today. Go to www.spinmarket.com to find out more information. Your business, your message, our platform.
It's the Spin Market Report. Here's your host, Peter Stockdale.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the Spin Market Report. Sitting down today, I got Cheryl with me. It's just the two of us, but sometimes that's a good way to get a conversation going about something.
Sometimes we just don't have enough time to talk, do we, Peter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's always my problem. So we're going to sit here and talk about podcasts today because, well, we're on a podcast and we're going to talk about, it's almost like podcastception. You know, remember that movie Inception where they were doing dreams inside of dreams? This is like a podcast inside of a podcast instead of...
No, I don't remember,
okay.
But I find it intriguing about how the description that you're giving me.
Yes. So this is the one thing I want to talk about is we've produced a couple new podcasts in the last week. And let's talk about why podcasts can be important for companies, or like what are some of the benefits? So the obvious thing is we work at a marketing company, digital marketing. Podcasts are digital. I don't know anybody that's got a podcast on tape. No. So this is basically what we've been doing.
If they have a tape, they're probably still looking for something that still works that they can play that tape on, right?
Probably. Oh, man. So one of the things I want to discuss is how does podcast and marketing line up? Like, why is this such a powerful marketing tool? Or what can people do with a podcast that they maybe aren't thinking they can do?
Well, and that goes back to what we always tell our clients is when we're trying to set up and work on their marketing campaigns, we're always looking for how can we use each of the marketing elements that we do in various ways so that they get more bang for their buck out there. And it's not just a video of them doing something. How do we take that video and take it apart and do things? And that's what we do with podcasts because you have your audio part of it, you have your video part of it, and you can go in and pull segments off of it. You do a great job yourself with pulling reels off of it. You can have the video used as training for your employees or for your customers out there. You can pull just audio segments off of it and put it on various things. It's just it has so many diverse ways of using it. And if you're doing your podcast in a way that it's timeless, because once it's out there until you take it down. And of course, now with the way they're able to or SEO is able to search on video as well as audio.
Oh, they can go through the transcripts.
Yes, transcripts on it. It's another way to have searchability for your business out there and reach a market and find a market that maybe you didn't even know you should have been reaching for.
That ties into the next question. So how is this different than social media and blogs? Because there's probably people saying like, I post on social media once a week. I've got a blog that posts every week on my website. I got plenty of SEO content. It's good enough. But maybe not. So like the one thing I want to touch on this for sure is I don't really read blogs anymore. I'm driving places, I'm doing things, I'm, whatever you're doing.
Multitasking.
Making supper, whatever it happens to be. But
you making supper?
I do make supper sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not always going out to eat.
Okay.
I'm not always supporting the fine culinary cuisine here in Fort Dodge. But it's just easier to listen to podcasts, which again, like, we make video and audio for every podcast. And I'm thinking to myself, who wouldn't want to watch the video? And it's weird because I most of the time just listen to the audio on podcasts. So they both have use.
Exactly. And you're different market out there. Some of them are wanted. I enjoy watching the YouTube because I like to see the interaction type of a things. Of course, if you're driving in a vehicle, that's not kosher. You're not supposed to be doing that. So the audio option is where you need to go with it. And again, it's reaching out to an entirely different market than you're doing with your blogs or anything. And blogs, you bring up a good point. Most people don't read them very much. They're more for your searchability, to be able to find that you are doing something out there, or whatever your services are and what you're providing for your customers.
Absolutely. So what about some of the biggest benefits? We kind of talked about it a little bit, where you can basically increase your SEO. You can use it as training. You can pull clips out of it, like all those kind of things. But let's say let's just do an example. Like, let's say we're doing a podcast and we have a restaurant or something like that, and you're doing a weekly podcast. Well, you could essentially like do your weekly ad specials or something like that. Or like, let's say you're in like a big city, you could be like, well, the parking is over here and something. You could do different things with it and get information. One of the things you said earlier was to the customer, which is, for some reason, my brain just didn't think of that. It's like you can, in a sense, like train your customer how to utilize your business in the best way.
Yeah.
And I guess I never really thought about a podcast like that, but it's true.
That's another way you can do it. A restaurant could be featuring the food for the day, the waitress for the day, a fun little clip that they could pull off the podcast as well. And I think the podcast also really relates back to your market getting to know you as the podcast person. Or, more individually, more personally. And you always are saying you add that human touch to it. You're always making that comment.
It humanizes everyone.
Humanizes everyone, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but like, let's say like a dentist or a car salesman or the people are kind of like, I don't know, sometimes these are woo woo, but then you sit down and you listen to these people every single week and you're like, oh, these people are human. They're just like you and me. They have conversations like you and me.
Get to know them through their podcast.
They have family. Yeah, they have families. You start to, it's not like they're just sitting there talking about their family, but you listen to 5, 6, 7 episodes and you're like, oh, they mentioned their kid again.
Yeah.
And now, it's like, oh, this person has all the same daily struggles as me. And I think that's one of the best parts about podcasts is you sit down and, like you said, you get to know these people. You don't actually have a conversation with them, but you kind of feel like you're sitting there having the conversation.
Exactly. And it also opens up, some people say, well, it's kind of like a TV show. Well, in some ways it is, but I think it gives you more opportunity to show your personality.
Absolutely. And
because you can have it however long you want. So if you're sitting talking for a half hour, you really get to know an individual.
Yeah.
From a variety of things, from their knowledge and everything like that, but also their personality and whether you think their personality and your personality are going to juggle.
Absolutely. Together. So, the one I think about that the most would be like a financial podcast. Like we have How to Money with Cole and Cole. And it's nice to see what they talk about every single week, and this kind of ties into the next question, which is like, how does podcasting help businesses connect to target audiences? So what I've noticed with How to Money with Cole and Cole is like, they're going to talk about retirement. Well, guess what? That's top of mind for a lot of people going online. And when they search for, what are some things they need to know about retirement? Well, guess what? Maybe an episode of their podcast will pop up.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily that it's the podcast that just went out this week.
Yeah.
It could be because they're always making sure their podcasts are different and have a different story behind it. And there may be some things that are relatable each time, but there's always something new. And of course, there's always some little tidbits that they have out there that they bring into their podcast as well.
Absolutely. So another one with this would be like Talk Fort Dodge.
Yes.
People that are looking for Fort Dodge stuff and they're looking for, who's in the community and what's going on. That's another podcast that's produced here at Spin Market. Both of those are actually. And that's another one that we've seen lately. A lot of people have been finding.
Oh, yes. It's just really exploded.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just one of those things. If you want to know what's going on in Fort Dodge or who's here and what they're doing, it's a great community podcast. So you're getting this target audience of people from Fort Dodge and the surrounding big cities kind of noticing what's going on in Fort Dodge.
And again, a podcast is your new digital storefront.
Yeah.
You are telling the world everything about your business out there and how you work and then of course the ones that you just discussed, how they like Talk Fort Dodge, how it promotes the community out there. And, have a lot of things going to be happening and we need to bring in more workforce. And that's a great way for them to learn more about the community.
All right. So let's say, for instance, we got companies or businesses or even individuals that are thinking to themselves, I want to start a podcast. What might be some of the things they should look at before starting a podcast? I think I want to take the lead on this one.
Okay.
And the first thing is, you got to have content. You got to know what you're going to talk about. You can't just be like, well, we're going to do a podcast and then what's it going to be about? I don't know. I'm just going to bring people on and talk to them. Might not be the best avenue because you kind of want to
Need a strategy.
You kind of want to pick a lane. Yeah. And then the other thing would be consistency.
Yes.
We noticed that on a few of our podcasts when they'd either miss a week or we'd go 2 weeks or something like that. It really, it hammered down the algorithm, the analytics, the everything, all the stats. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to build back up that credibility of knowing you're going to be there every week.
Well, and that's the whole thing with marketing is the consistency across the board. It's not just with podcasts, it's being consistent with it and making sure that you're top of mind. But yeah, if you're going to do a podcast, first of all, you need to call us because we're going to give you an outline of what you need to do. Don't be thinking that, you've got to figure it out yourself. Come in, have a conversation with us. We'll help you format and organize how it needs to be set up and come up with those ideas and understand that it's going to be constantly evolving.
Yes.
You have to be very patient for number one, for people to start watching it. But we work really hard on making sure that information is out there, that, we're helping you market it as well as part of the package, but making sure that you understand the consistency, constantly being out there. If you're going to do it on Tuesdays, you better have a podcast ready every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, at least twice a month, to have that consistency. Because if you don't, and like you said, the algorithms the algorithm gods do not like that you are not being consistent.
Yeah. That comes down to that's a life lesson, honestly. Like, show up when you say you're going to show up, do the thing when you say you're going to do it. And then, because
perform, get it done.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. Like, I don't follow almost any of my podcasts on social media. There's like 3 or 4 of them I do. And I expect the episodes to be there in my app on the mornings when I know they're going to be there and I'm driving to work. And when they're not, I'm like, well, what's going on here? And then I'll listen to it later or something, but it does kind of like,
you wonder
what's
happened.
Up? Yeah.
Is there a change somewhere? Something happening?
Yeah. Did I miss something? Or, but that's one of those things. You have to make an announcement if you're going to miss an episode. And then even then it's still like, did they see the announcement on social media? Because they're probably waiting for the episode to come out on YouTube or whatever, So we're talking about strategies to build podcasts. Easily consistency, I would say would be number one. But let's talk about integrating podcasting into marketing. So like, let's say they already have a marketing plan of some sort in place. What are some of the things that podcasting does additionally? So we talked about reels, and I think that's a great way to it's almost like a movie trailer, instead of like listening to the whole podcast to get 28 minutes in to find that one section.
It's a teaser.
Yeah, exactly. You can pull out the thing somebody says that's a hot point issue that, everybody's kind of thinking about, or pull a little segment out that's kind of interesting. And somebody's like, if the reel started out with somebody saying, well, when I was 5 years old, I blah, blah, something in the country, and then I had a dog. And it's like, well, this story's kind of interesting. What's this person, where are we going with
I'm
this?
I'm curious now. I want to see what's going on.
Yeah. And then if you don't get enough of it in the reel, you go to the episode and listen to the episode. So you can kind of promote yourself with your own episodes. But you can also talk about something like, oh, we have an event coming up. Oh, we're promoting an event now with this thing. And not only are you making like a social media post for it, but now you have a little tiny video clip you can pull out of a podcast if you know how, or if you can, or whatever. So those are some of the other things that we've noticed with podcasting is that actually is very beneficial to these companies, at least to get, their name out there, to get their podcast out there, and to get people just to notice the fact that the podcast exists. I think that's one of the toughest things is, radio, everyone's got a radio everywhere. There's one in every room, in every building, everywhere, in your car. But like podcasts, we got them all on our phone, but it's almost like there's too many. So how do you get them out there? You've got to show people in some capacity, either on your social media or somewhere, that like this exists, and
right, exactly.
Again, that's marketing. And I always used to be like, you don't want to be too like quote unquote pushy, but at the same time, like if somebody enjoys the thing, they're not going to think you're being pushy about it. If you're putting out, a reel every 2 or 3 days, so
some of the other ways that you can really promote it would be one, your sponsorships.
Oh yeah.
And if whoever your sponsor is, it's a win-win because that sponsor is going to share your information because they're sponsoring it and putting a monetary behind it. So they want to make sure everybody gets that information. And who you bring in for guests.
That's awesome because those are like the next 2 questions.
Oh, okay. Well, then I haven't even read all the questions.
No, that's beautiful. Okay. So we're talking
we're way too much in tune here.
Yeah, we've done this a couple times. So talking about monetizing, that's, sponsoring a podcast. If if you have a podcast and you're thinking like, I want to do this, and the cost is something that is top of mind for you. Because I mean, everybody, if you have a business,
there's no free lunch.
Yeah. If you're a business, you're always thinking about where we're spending the dollars, but a sponsorship is a great way to, defray some of the costs. We've had one podcast in particular that has found sponsorships that is essentially defrayed the cost entirely, and it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great when somebody can do that, and finding sponsorships, I get is kind of difficult, but there's also like product placement you could do. Maybe you don't have to do a sponsorship. You can have, I'm wearing clothes from this company or something like that. And then, guess what? Now you don't have to buy fancy clothes for your podcast. Or if you're doing decorations, well, decorations were donated by this company, You used to hear that on TV shows, especially like, your talk shows back in the day. It's like
clothing provided by
bingo,
such and such, and of course you watch a variety of other commercials or anything out there, and you'll see the Walmart bag or the Coke can or whatever. Those are placed there and for a specific reason, and those companies are looking for that as being a way to promote their business and sponsoring whatever they're doing.
So let's talk about advertising on podcasts. So advertising on a podcast is something that we kind of were just talking a little bit about, but like, how is it beneficial? Like what is the benefit of a company deciding like, okay, yes, I want to advertise on a podcast? Because that's something we will help out with. We will do, we call them sponsorships, sponsoring episodes, not necessarily advertising on an episode. They're cousins to each other, but they're not exactly the same thing. But advertising, like, what is, I think about this. So like, if you have a show again and you pick a lane, what's the benefit of picking out an advertiser or a sponsor for your podcast? Because you can pick your own for the most part, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's the bang for your buck. The sponsor receives some great things that they can promote out there. If it's a community service type of a thing, whatever, it's important to think about the sponsors that you're going after, whether they align with what you're doing, as well as how are they going to help you and how are you going to help them. It's a win-win on it. There's nothing negative about having a sponsor on there, and it also adds additional buzz to your company because they're saying, oh wow, this other company is that impressed with this podcast, they were willing to sponsor it as well. So it's another kudos for you as a business owner. That's
pretty cool to be like, I'm a business owner and I started almost a side project, and another business took notice and they're like, I want in on this.
Yes, exactly. And you're going, all right.
That's pretty sweet. Plus, if let's say I'm hosting a podcast, and I don't know if you want to use the restaurant thing again, but let's say I'm hosting a restaurant-based podcast or something like that, or food service, you can pick like, oh, I want, Joe's Butcher Shop to be the sponsor this week because that's where I get my meat, and you're already, paying them for meat. So why wouldn't they want to kick a couple bucks back to you and promote their own industry or something like that? So there's ways you can actually pick things out that would be really beneficial to you. So trying to think of like what other some good examples might be of that.
I'm going to use David Letterman as an example.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yep.
Think about David Letterman's show and the bodega.
Oh yeah, was it?
That was absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
And what he did for that company.
Yeah, Rupert's Deli.
Yes.
The Hello Deli.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a perfect example of just, I could see Letterman just walking down the street and going, I like that name Rupert.
Yeah.
And I like Hello Deli. Why don't we see if we can't get him a part on.
Let's go bug this guy a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, that's a perfect example of it. And it skyrocketed. I mean, poor Rupert, he probably couldn't even go into another store without being, I see you on David Letterman every week.
I remember looking that up when we were in a team meeting once because we were talking about it, and it was like, it existed for like 30 years or something like that. And I think he maybe just closed or maybe something. It was something like that. But yeah, it's crazy. You think about like how much business he got just for being the butt end of a joke, basically.
Exactly. And, you wouldn't expect anything less from David Letterman.
Yeah. So let's compare marketing on a podcast.
Our marketing to David Letterman's marketing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good segue.
Let's compare marketing on like the radio or television compared to a podcast. I'm not going to dog on either one of those because I said everyone's got a radio in their car. Everyone's got a radio in every room in the house.
Everybody's got a TV.
Yes, everyone's got a TV. We all know and love those sources of media. We all intake them as much as possible. But again, I think what it comes down to make podcasts special is the fact that you can tailor this. You're picking out, if you pick out a podcast because you want to listen to a finance thing, well, guess what? You might get banking and investment advertisements or something like that. You might get, you're looking to buy a house, or something. It might pick something out that's kind of a cousin to what you're listening to kind of promote, which you might not have even thought about until it shows up on there. I think that's the best part, because if you're watching, they do it a little bit on TV and they do it a little bit on radio, because if you go from station to station, you can find the country stations promote certain things more than the rock stations. Or if you listen to, or if you watch TV during the daytime, stuff that's being advertised a little different than at nighttime, so there's a little bit of that. But how many times have you been watching a sitcom and they're just like, here's like, there's a toy sale, and then here's Bounty, and then here's a restaurant. And you're like, I don't really care about some of these. Every third ad might be pertinent to you, but they're trying to hit such a wide audience that it's not actually, the advertising and the marketing that's going on might not actually be hitting where it should be hitting.
Well, I had an interesting conversation yesterday with a company that we can be working with on promoting some of the podcasts out there. And again, it was, finding your demographic out, going through the list and figuring out what is potentially your market, and then reviewing the data to find out if that really is your market on there, and how you're going to do it. So, the differences are radio and TV are a little bit more structured over a period of time, where a podcast is much more,
I think, targeted, as well as it has the opportunity to be much more quickly changed. Yeah. Where, a TV show is done how many months in advance, or whatever. Yep. Things change on it, but we can, by doing a podcast every week or every 2 weeks, you're able to constantly be just rolling out information that's very pertinent at that time. Yeah. On it, especially like with the financial ones, that because their stuff is changing every day. Yeah. Our stuff is changing every day, but in different ways. I like how you said that about radio, because radio is comes back to what we said earlier. It's consistency. It's the slow burn. Like, how many times you listen to the radio and you're just like, road on home improvement, and all these jingles from the radio that are like, I've never once utilized this company, but I know because I've heard the jingle. O'Reilly. I'm not trying to promote other companies, but still, the jingles because you've heard them a million times, and that slow burn.
And as soon as you hear that first note out there, you know which one it is. Well, and the comments that we get on our bad dad joke, because we do radio ad, and the bad dad joke every day that we sponsor on there, where we hear from parents driving their kids to school that when I hear the bad dad joke, I know I need to be on block whatever. I need to be on this location in order to make sure my kids are at school at the right time. That's fun. Or the banks that we've heard will write the bad dad joke in the entrance. So, when they come in, that's the first thing you see is the bad dad joke of the day, or through the drive-through line, or that type of thing. Again, it's something fun, and it's totally different every day. And of course, we come in and laugh at the bad dad jokes. Yeah. When there's some really good ones or some really awful ones that you remember.
There's nothing funnier than just being in the office working with one headphone in, and they're just like, you guys want to hear the bad dad joke? And you're just like, all right, what do we got? Let's hear it. Okay. So let's talk about guests on podcasts. Right now we have a podcast. This podcast is primarily guest driven. Yes. So there's been, I think this is the third episode we've had without a guest, and it's usually just you and me sitting here. So right now we have no guest, but what's the benefit of having a guest? The obvious thing is double the exposure, whatever it might be. If you're going to sit down and talk with, Bob's Supermarket, anybody at the supermarket can share it. Everybody there is going to watch it. They're going to share it on their social media.
It's a whole nother demographic.
Bingo. And not only that, but it's beneficial to them because you're adding extra layers to their marketing, essentially, I don't want to say for free, but because the cost is on the person hosting the podcast. Right. But again, they didn't really have to do anything other than plan for this and show up.
Right,
and answer
exactly.
questions.
Yeah, and we provide the questions
Absolutely.
for them as well. But you're right. They're your guests. All your guests are going to have different personalities. Some of them are going to be vibrant. Some of them you're going to have to pull out that responses to them. It might still be a great podcast because their information is so good.
Bingo.
That doesn't mean we don't want everybody in here jumping around and every one of them be exactly the same. You want some of that variety, and you're looking for the guest to complement you and your business and to have the same ideas and thoughts as far as how they want to represent themselves in the community.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things about that is, so let's talk about one of the podcasts that just recently launched, Rooted in Results.
Yes.
And so one of my favorite things about that, or is it Rooted? Rooted? Rooted.
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 Well, I guess it depends on how you pronounce it.
Is that a where you're from dialect thing? I don't know.
It
Either
might
way.
be. It's kind of like wash,
Oh, yes.
footage.
Yes. So my favorite part about that one is it's Christy Lammers of Lammers Ag. She's a seed corn dealer.
And one of the top channel seed corn dealers in the Midwest.
Yes.
And she's female.
Yes.
And it's agriculture.
It's awesome. Which is, you think like, well, agriculture, like what's somebody that sells seeds going to have to talk about? Well, guess what? She brought in somebody that talked about a planter.
Yeah, how to make sure your planter is planting the way it should, and how your planter parts deteriorate as you're going down the field, and measurements, and it was quite interesting.
Yeah, so that was a good example of bringing somebody on that's a guest and also boosting the credibility of both individuals. Right. So I believe the guy's name was Will Hatcher. Don't quote me 100%
Out
on
of
that.
Kansas.
Yeah, but I think that was his name. And that's basically what he does is he sets up planters and he's a professional at that. So you bring in somebody that's in an adjacent portion of your industry to show credibility to both of you. For an example, Christy wants to sell you seeds, but guess what? She also knows people that can help you set up planters.
Right.
And
that networking.
Bingo. Yeah. She's got another episode coming out with people that have like technology to test whether, what nutrients your plant has an excess of or lacking. Yeah. With a machine. So the extra episodes of that are going to be great. Another example would be the Alliance Connection, which is Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance podcast. And they're bringing on people that they had an award ceremony recently. They have one every year, their annual dinner. They brought in a couple of people that won awards and say, why do we choose you for this award? What do you do in the community? And what are some things like where do people maybe know you from? So they had another couple episodes they're bringing in where they're talking about different things they do within the community, possibly to like Junior Leadership Fort Dodge or Leadership Fort Dodge, things like that. Things they're involved in that can kind of help the community grow.
That will help the community grow under a long time, because the junior leadership, that's the kids, the juniors at the two high schools here, the Fort Dodge Community School District and St. Edmunds, and those students go and do like the Leadership Fort Dodge in a mini size on it to get to know things that they may not realize happen in our community. And the idea is to educate them more as to what's available here, with the ultimate goal that they will come back from college, wherever it may be, or whatever it is, and take a job and spend their life here in our community, in our region.
Mm-hmm. This isn't necessarily guest driven, but I didn't have this on here. I just thought of this. So like, how about a segment section? So we got Talk Fort Dodge, which is hosted by Todd and Jeremiah, and they work at Kesterson Realty. And one of the things they do is they have a little segment at the beginning where they have a featured house of the week. Maybe Jeremiah gives a couple housing facts.
Crazy fact.
Which, believe it or not, has been some of like the stuff that's drawn the most buzz for the podcast.
The haunted house one is the one we always bring up.
It exploded. It's so funny. People are just like, my grandma lived in a haunted house, and they tell all these stories, and it's super fun to get that interaction. But that's another thing you can do where it's like, this is a cousin to what we're actually talking about. They're talking about community, why you want to move here, why you want to stay here, the cool things that are here. And not only that, but there's a house for sale. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite parts about it is they're not spending the whole episode talking about selling houses.
No.
They're spending a tiny section on something that's a cousin to what they're talking about, that they're professionals, that's actually their industry, and then they go on to talk about what they wanted to talk about. So it's not a guest, but it's a segment, so it's kind of close.
And that's the beauty of a podcast. You really can orchestrate the podcast any way you want it to go, and change it at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And make it different, and maybe adapt the way your questions are or your fun little segment is based on the customer or the guest that you're going to have come in and target it that way. I think How to Money with Cole's done that when they brought in like Luke and Bill and the other ones on there and changed that their comments or their ideas or like
the dollars and cents
segment, that type of thing, or they're ribbing back and forth when it's March Madness and that type of thing.
Yeah. They've got a couple little funny like mini segments they pull into theirs. Like they have the quote of the episode at the end, the sports quote, and they usually try and tie it in with something that's kind of going on. And I don't know, they've done a good job. Granted, what we talked about, this is a slow burn. Was it perfect at first? No, it wasn't. No. But you figure out the way you're going to do things by doing them more. It's like you figure out how you want to introduce every episode and how to end every episode. 10 episodes in, you didn't realize, you go back to episode 1, you're like, man, it really wasn't that good at episode 1, even though it was good. But you find you're in the swing of things now. You've got a pattern. You've got something.
There's
that
a
works.
Rhythm going on.
I think that was the word I was looking for.
Was
the whole
it?
time.
Okay. I knew that. That's again, we're way too in sync here.
All right. So here's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. So do you need high-end, expensive equipment to have a podcast? I would say no, but I will say this from personal experience. Low-end equipment is going to give low-end audio and low-end video.
Yes.
Is there anything wrong with that? Maybe not. It kind of depends on the audience a little bit. But I would say the most important thing in a podcast is 100% the message.
Yes.
Yes. You have to be consistent. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to get a message across every single week. And you have to talk about something that you know something about, because people, again, if you go 10, 20 episodes of talking about something that you're not necessarily a professional about, or maybe you don't know a whole lot about, people are going to be able to sniff that out because you're just so humanized. People have heard 20 hours of you talking about something that maybe you don't, even if you don't really care about it that much, they're going to notice you don't care. They'll know it by
your tone and how you're representing it.
Yes. So I want to just reiterate that the message is the most important thing. And that comes back to, if a company wants to start a podcast, how do they start one? You kind of have to start somewhere. You have to have an outline, a plan, something, and you have to know and be okay with the fact that this might not be perfect at first, but we can change it and tweak it and make it better and make it exactly what you fall into the rhythm. We'll find the rhythm for everybody, And a good example for this is what I'm going to talk about. Christy's podcast, Christy Lammers, Rooted in Results, is over Zoom for the most part, because she's talking to people all across the Midwest.
Right.
So it's not exactly easy for her she's not going to drive to Kansas to do it.
No, and they're not going to drive to Parkersburg, Iowa either, unless they're already at her place. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit different format on there.
But that one worked perfect because, and this isn't saying anything about anything, but the content that's in there is what people wanted. Yes. People aren't listening to this and be like, you didn't use an SM7B Shure microphone, and I can tell because the audio, nobody's saying that.
Right.
You were talking about how your husband, who is a farmer, listened to the episode intently.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where I bet he never once thought to himself, this is Zoom audio quality, because the information was what he was after. So
he was just listening to, I think he was actually watching it too, but he was, listening to it. His other comment was he looked at me and he goes, how did you know to ask those questions? That was the best part, because he knows that I know enough about agriculture because I've lived it all my life, but some of the questions were pretty detailed. I said, well, that's, part of the charm of our company.
So having said that about, do we need to have all this info? You don't necessarily have to, but guess what? Buying cheap microphones, and you're still going to spend a decent amount of money. Because we did the cost analysis on it once for somebody that was like, we want to try and do this on our own in a sense. And it's like, well, this is about the cheapest you're going to get away with,
and they
even
were
just
shocked.
Buying the equipment. That's like, whoa, that's still an investment. So the one thing I want to reiterate here is, we do have what I call industry standard microphones. These are like the microphones everyone uses. We have high definition cameras. We have a 4-camera setup. We have all the stuff. We've got the decorations in the room. We have the studio space. We'll customize everything for you. So it's not just a camera pointing into the corner of a room with 2 people sitting at a table, which again, there's nothing wrong with that if the message is there, but at the same time, if you don't want to go through the trouble of doing all that stuff, we can just do it all for you here, and that's the beauty of having the nice stuff
and making sure that the set is designed for that client out there and their decisions of what they want on it, and making that personal end of it. So it's their own individual podcast. It's not looking like, oh, well, that was produced at Spin Market every time out there, because a lot of them don't even know that until they read the credits or whatever.
Yeah, which was something, we had somebody come in and they were just like, I didn't know you guys were a thing until I listened to the I think it was Talk 4 Dodge. And they were like, I just came in to see what you guys were doing, like what you're all about. And they came in and they took all these business cards and just sat and asked us a bunch of questions. And it's like, oh, that's cool that it works. And usually all of our stuff is at the very end of most podcasts. There's only a couple where we put something in the middle, but or a link in the description. It's always the very bottom link at the very, very end. So
because it's the customer or the client that we're promoting out there, but it's like anything else. We want to make sure that people know that if they're interested, where it's produced. This
is where it's at, And again, like even every episode, if they have a guest on there, the guest is the important thing now. So that those links go to the top, So there's different things I think a lot of people don't think about when it comes down to like, how do I format the description on this and to get it so the most keywords are in here. So when somebody searches something, they'll actually find this episode. There's a lot of those things people don't think about when it comes. So
I'm going to throw a question back to you, Peter.
All right.
And I know we've got it more refined, but so the audience knows, how much time do we put into each podcast?
Oh man. It depends on the podcast, but if I just had to say a flat amount, 6 to 8 hours per episode.
Yes.
So if you want to go down to like planning who's going to be on the episode, coordinating it, setting a date, getting all that worked up with questions sometimes, because I do a lot of production work on a lot of podcasts, but then you have to go in the room and you have to organize the room, which takes about half an hour to take everything out and change all the posters or put up curtains or change the flowers or whatever it happens to be.
Those little things that we do.
Get different chairs or furniture, whatever people want in here, change out everything basically, But then we record the episode. Maybe that's an hour long. Then I got to go edit the thing. Maybe that takes another hour and a half, and then we got to make reels out of it. Well, maybe that takes another hour and a half, Then I got to go on social media and schedule all these out. And maybe that takes an hour and a half. And you can see where I'm already at, 6 hours if I'm just guesstimating, and some podcasts take a little longer in the edit bay and some podcasts are nice and don't take any time in the edit bay, but then you have to make the reels, and even you can use AI to help you, but AI is not perfect.
Right. You still have to review anything that AI does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was actually one question on here that I used AI to make I'd say 6 or 7 of these questions, and it when I copy pasted it in here, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I crossed it off on my sheet, and I was like, well, I didn't edit this until I sat down in here and reread it. And I was like, I don't like this question.
On there.
Yeah, this one's not good.
I think that what you brought up are some really good points. Just because the podcast is X number of minutes or however long it is, that there's a lot more behind the scenes. And that's what we always talk about with our clients. What you see is the perfection that came out. What you don't see is the hours that we spend or the knowledge that we put into it and the experience that we put into it that your business may not be able to duplicate.
Yeah. All you saw was fresh sushi, and you didn't realize somebody had to catch this fish and then bring it to the restaurant, and somebody had to choose that fish and then cut it up and then do the thing, and you had to have a professional go and there's all these things behind the scenes that people I think don't think about on a daily basis.
Well, and then you bring up a good point, and that's what's so great about a podcast is you, from the very beginning, from catching the fish to the time that sushi is on your table, went through the whole process of what it takes. And that's what people love to hear. And that's what you're able to do in a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so great. So I do want to say, again, a few things we talked about is the message is important. The consistency is important. Professionalism is important to an extent. All these things, you can kind of get away with a little bit of it, but people are going to, again, notice if it's just one camera set up in the corner of a dingy basement. They're going to notice these things. So they're going to notice it really quick. But then you better be leaning really hard on the other things if you're going to start taking away from any of this stuff. I'm getting down to the end of this, but so let's say a business is unaware that a podcast is right for them. What's something they should consider? I just wrote down here one word again: content. You got to have content. You can't just you and I can't just start up. I mean, we could, and anyone could. I'm not sure how entertaining it would be because you and I aren't comedians or something. But we can't just sit here and talk. Oh, did you see what happened in the news yesterday? And Bob something. What it's not going to be that entertaining. We have to have something we're talking about. Like today, we're talking about podcasts. Usually, we bring a guest on. We talk to them about marketing, about how the business started. And why should people go there, and where are they located, and we get all these little clips out for them to use or for us to use, and depending on who's on the podcast. So I would definitely say that's something I would definitely want to say is the content is important. But what would you say to a company that's unsure that their podcast may or may not be right for them? What's a quick pitch you would give them?
Well, if everything was always sure, if you were always knew that everything was going to work in this world, wouldn't it be boring?
Yeah.
So
and we'd all be millionaires.
We'd all be millionaires. We'd all, we wouldn't be doing a podcast here to tell you about how to do a podcast.
Yeah. Or why to do
or
a
why
podcast.
do a podcast.
Or what is a podcast?
There is challenge to everything you do, and you would not be a business owner if you did not appreciate challenge.
Absolutely.
On there. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But again, you can tweak it.
Yes.
So you're not locking yourself into one special, it's not any different than any other marketing out there, or how people change their social media or everything out there. Podcast is one of those tools to help you tell your story.
Yeah.
And tell your story to a wider audience than maybe some of your other marketing platforms are missing out on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about how many times, if somebody put an ad in the paper for something, I might not see it, but if I'm scrolling through Facebook and a reel pops up, I might see it, or even vice versa for that. I'm not trying to pick on, the newspaper or again, radio or any of that stuff.
Every media has its niche
Yes.
and its purpose, and you need to understand what that is.
So a good example of that, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, billboards. Yes. I saw a Ponchero's billboard and it's pointing northbound on 169. So when you're going north out of Fort Dodge, there's a Ponchero's billboard, which kind of seems weird because Ponchero's is in Fort Dodge.
It's in Fort Dodge and not.
But every time I'm leaving Fort Dodge, I'm like, should have got Ponchero's.
Yeah. But you didn't.
But I didn't. But it's always something on my mind.
It really should have been
Sorry.
It should have been on the way going into Fort
Yes.
Dodge on there,
Yeah.
and to say, oh, well, I haven't ate lunch yet. I need to go to Ponchero's instead of, oh crap, I'm on the way home. I can't turn around and go to Ponchero.
Yeah, but it's again, I always think about it every time I'm driving home. So now there's something in my brain now that every time I'm in Fort Dodge,
branding.
it's like Fort Dodge Ponchero's, Fort Dodge Ponchero's.
So you're buying lunch today?
I guess I might have to.
Okay.
So one of the other things I wanted to talk about, and this is something I stay up late at night and I just like read something. I'm like, well, what is this? And what can I learn more about it? And I don't know why I do this, but I was reading about late stage social media. And that's something where like social media is getting to a place now where people are using it for branding and content more so than actually being social with others, and that's something I want to talk about. Podcasting is it toes the line perfectly between the two of those things. You can point at any of our podcasts. I'll name them all again. Talk Fort Dodge, How to Money with Cole, The Alliance Connection, Rooted in Results, or even this one, which is the Spin Market Report.
And a couple more coming on.
Yeah, we've got more in the works for sure, which is, it's going to be great.
It is. We're excited.
But it makes me think like these are ways where we're actually talking about something with a purpose, trying to market something, but at the same time, we're sitting here and we're talking like human beings. We're having a conversation about things. We're talking about how, I drove past a billboard and saw this. We're actually talking about things that are everyday, real things. They do it on all these other podcasts too. Talk Fort Dodge, Jeremiah and Todd are great at banter. And it's no different than How to Money with Cole. Those three are, Cole and Bailey are always... They're in an office together all day long, and then they come in here and they're just goofing off in our office now for an hour and recording an episode. So it's great to be able to humanize these people while they're still getting a point across, So you're not stuck in this trap of what they call late stage social media where everything feels like you're pushing an agenda, even though they, in a sense kind of are. You want to learn about, retirement stuff, and it's like, my favorite part about that podcast is like, maybe you need a financial advisor. Maybe it's us, maybe it's not, but you got to find somebody you trust, and they're not just helping themselves out, they're helping out their industry and others, while still having a good time on a podcast.
It's a well-rounded picture of everything, their business, their company, their colleagues that are also financial advisors or whatever it is out there. So yeah, it's well-rounded and it's a great marketing tool. Yeah.
So I do want to say, I'm going to do this. I'll put in the description. I'm going to put links to all the other podcasts we have.
Because that's part... somebody's going, oh, well, you want to promote yourselves. No, that is not the whole idea behind it. We want to promote our community. We want to promote the businesses themselves. I mean, that is why I even started this company, was not necessarily for me to have a job. It was because there's a need to support our small and medium businesses and provide somebody to help them know how to market their businesses out there. And that's our mission, is how are we going to help you to market your business? Because as your business grows, our community grows, and that's what our mission is.
Absolutely. I think that's actually, we were talking about that the other day with people saying something too often in the podcast. I say absolutely a lot, but yes.
But that's your personality.
Yes, we want to help people. We want to help companies, and I feel like this is just another layer of that. You know, it's believe it or not, I heard talk Fort Dodge before I ever even worked here. You know, so that it worked. You know, and I don't even live in Fort Dodge. You know, but I knew it existed, and I'd seen some of the episodes. So,
and that was just totally social media.
Yeah, 100% social media driven, and that's. I don't know. Again, I'm just going to put the links to everything down below. You can check out these amazing podcasts. So we got Talk Fort Dodge. That is, I don't say it's sponsored by. It is produced by Spin Market, but it is provided to everybody by Kesterson Realty. Right. Todd and Jeremiah are the two people that are doing it. They're the ones that are actually have their names on it. It's great for Fort Dodge community. They tie in a tiny bit of housing stuff at the beginning, and then they bring in somebody from the community to talk about what they're doing. Why is it fun to be here? You know, what are some of the things Fort Dodge has? I'm not going to try and pick out too many episodes, but I mean, they talked about somebody from senior healthcare. They talked to somebody about music.
We just did a ribbon cutting there yesterday at Bickford.
Nice. Yeah. They talk about music. They talk about there's a racetrack in town. They've brought in police chiefs. I mean, everything. They've talked to literally one of everybody almost in
legislators on there.
Yeah, people who work for the city, you know, and what they do and why that's important. And I think that's one of the fun podcasts we have. The other one would be How to Money with Cole and Cole. Again, that's a finance-based podcast. It's Full Swing Financial is the one that
they love to talk sports.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one. So if you
male and female, because they have both gentlemen and Cole and Bailey.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bailey, that's a fun one too, because Bailey's the host, but it has their names
She's
on it.
She's the instigator.
Yes. That's a fun one. So again, that's another one where if you do enough podcasts, you get comfortable with enough, you know, each other enough to be like those two, Talk Fort Dodge and How to Money with Cole and Cole. They've done it enough where they can goof around and have the good banter with each other. Another one would be the Alliance Connection. Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance started a podcast, and they're talking about economic development within the region. So we've got 3 different areas kind of covered in the Fort Dodge area, and then, of course, us with marketing. So if you haven't heard the first episode of the Alliance Connection, go back and listen to it. Just go in the description, click on the links, and find it. It's right there. Otherwise, I want to say Rooted in Results, which is another one where
that's totally different than anything.
Way out of left field compared to anything else we're doing. But we did, and I almost don't want to say, we did minimal promotion for that one. It was something that was kind of like, let's just see what happens, you know, and we were just kind of testing the waters. A lot of people listened to that episode because they found it organically, because guess what? Farmers are like, how do I set my planner up?
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden, boom, the episode comes up and they're listening to it.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So
it did really well for just out of the chute, and the way it was put together. So
yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next on those, because that's I can see where like community involvement, I understand that. Financial stuff, I understand that. You know, marketing, I get it. You know, economic impact, I've worked with, you know, near the Fort Dodge Growth Alliance for the last year, so I kind of get it. But like farming, like I grew up on a farm. I've planted sweet corn. I've done the whole thing, but like it's still foreign enough to me where it's like I don't know a whole lot about this. When I went through and edited, I'm like, some of this is actually really entertaining. You know, it's really interesting to hear what's going on here.
So you don't have to be just going out and getting your planner ready for this spring. You might just pick up some other tidbits of information.
You never know. So everybody, go into the descriptions, find the podcasts, check them out. Otherwise, there's a nice easy hub. We use the Spin Market's YouTube channel to just be like a hub for all this.
For everything.
If you want to go find any of the podcasts, they're all right there. If you want to find any of the channels hosting any of it, it's all right there. If you want to find some of the other companies we've worked with in the past, some other local companies, you know, community organizations, government organizations, we've got their channels linked there as well.
Right.
We make reels. We've done ribbon cuttings. We've got all sorts of little goofy little videos on there for things we've done for people, or raw footage of like drone videos for like things that we've done. You know, we've got a lot of that stuff on there. So it's, if you want to see what we've got going on, or you want to see more Spin Market stuff,
and
that's the place
what's going on in the community as well.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things I like about this. We now have a big enough set of podcasts in town where it's like there's a lot of stuff going on, and we can actually showcase it all.
A couple more right down the pipe.
Nice. It's cool. That's
So
cool.
you have to make sure that you keep following us.
Yes. Check us out on YouTube. It is youtube.com/@spinmarket. Just go to the descriptions. That's where all the links are going to be for all the podcast, all the Spin Market stuff. And if you're looking to start a podcast, give us a call. One of us will answer. Cheryl will be here. We can talk to you about podcasts all day long. All right.
Cool.
Anything,
Thank you.
Is there anything we left off?
I don't know.
don't know.
Did we leave anything off? No.
Producer
The
says no.
producers saying no. On the morning show with Kelly and on there, it's Gilman.
Gilman,
They always go to. So what are we going to call our producer that's here?
I was used
She's shaking her head, going, "Please, please, don't bring me out."
I always used to love that. They'd be like talking to somebody and they're like, "Oh, we got some more questions. Oh, Gilman says we got to go to commercial. Oh, Gilman." And then they get mad at him instead of Regis when he was on there. That was,
Yep.
I love that so much. That's so funny.
Well, this is going to open up a whole nother conversation, Peter.
All right, we better. Yeah, she's saying,
Cut it.
She's saying, cut it.
Cut
all right,
it. Okay.
So, all right, we're done. Thank
Thanks,
you very much,
Gilman.
everybody. We'll check you guys out next week.
Take care. Bye.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarketwith2ks.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarketwith2ks.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarketwith2ks.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarketwith2ks.com.